All right, so we're looking at our slugging averages and quarterback ratings. So it gives you a general setup that we're going to use over and over for our equation. So you would have a slugging percentage is what we're starting with. And this singles, doubles, triples, home runs, at-bats. So if you have watched baseball at all, then you have seen at least some of these. Some of you might say, I don't watch baseball, so I don't really even know what you're talking about. But the idea is if you make it to first base, you get a single. Double is second base. Triple is you get all three in one attempt. Home run is if it goes over the wall, or you can have an inside the park home run. AB stands for the number of at-bats, the number of times you get up there. So each single has a weight of 1. Double has a weight of 2, triple has a weight of 3, home runs have a weight of 4 because you're technically touching 4 bases. All this is talking about a slugging percentage, meaning hitting. It's not necessarily like scoring runs per se, but hitting. This gives you an example of Babe Ruth. All right, so Babe Ruth, if you've seen the movie Sandlot, you may have heard of Babe Ruth. But the slugging average was basically almost set in stone that Babe Ruth was sort of the standard of what everyone was trying to get at, with 73 singles, 36 doubles, 9 triples, and 54 home runs in 458 at-bats, which is impressive to say the least. But what happens there is you take the numbers, so 73 singles, that's times 1, 36 doubles, that's times 2, 9 triples times 3, and so on, 54 home runs, and that gives you the initial base count, like how many bases he touched by the hits. Then you take the base count, so 388, and you divide that by the total at bats, 458. The result of 388 divided by 458 was the slugging percentage of 0.847, which is just extremely high. The record was broken in 2001 by Barry Bonds. There's some discrepancy about some steroid use there, so some people are like, well, I think Babe Ruth still has it, but technically speaking, Barry Bonds has it at 0.863. Still impressive to hit like he did. There's just always that kind of in the air question with that record, but still impressive. All right, so find the slugging average for a player with the following stats. So this is where we're jumping in to utilizing this based off of the equation that we've been given. All right, so with the equation that we've been given, we see that we have a single at 68. So we're going to take 1 times 68. So the singles are always easy to calculate. 2 times 40. That's our doubles. 3 times 4, that's our triples. Home runs, 4 times 16. All right, and all of this is out of our total number of bats, which was 320. All right, so let's put that. We got 68, we got 80, we got 12, and then we are multiplying and getting 64. So up top, we divide that by 320. So when I say 68, 80, 12, 64 divided by 320, then we get 224 over 320, which is 0.700. So slugging average of 700, which is really still pretty impressive. All right. So the question is it possible to have a slugging average of more than 1? Yes, it is possible. As you see that the record from Babe Ruth stood for years, almost 80 years. So you're seeing that, it's unlikely to have anything over 1, but it is still possible. So you'd need to have a lot of home runs. So an example that I wrote down is, so say you had 100 singles, you had 50 doubles, you had the 10 triples is what we had down, and then you had 30 home runs, and the at-bats was 320. This is just an example to say, is it possible? All right, so that would be 350 would be your total over 320. So anything over the total number of at-bats is going to give you something above 1. So it's above 100%. It's just not very likely for that to happen, but it is possible. All right, so theoretically, what's the highest possible value for the slugging average? Well, the highest possible value theoretically would be that every time that you went up to bat, you hit a home run. So what you'd say is like, well, I got 0 of everything except home runs, and so we'll just say 4 times the number of at-bats. It really doesn't matter. This is just a theoretical scenario. So what that means is that the highest possible you could ever achieve would be a 400% slugging, and that would mean every time you went up to at bat, you got a home run, which pitchers are just really good in Major League Baseball, to say the least. So that's not going to happen, but it is possible. All right, so as we're switching to the next setup here, we see all right, so the next portion is the quarterback rating. So with our quarterback rating, what we're saying is comparing NFL quarterbacks. It's sometimes difficult to do in regard to like, well, this quarterback, they just find a way to win. Stats may not be as impressive. This quarterback throws a ton of touchdowns, but a ton of interceptions. This quarterback doesn't throw for a lot of yards, but they're very accurate. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. And again, you may not fully care about this, but a lot of people do, and there's a lot of money that goes into paying these quarterbacks, and some of this is based off of their quarterback rating. So the formula that we see in the middle of the screen here is the base formula that we'll use every time for the quarterback's rating. So we're taking the completions per attempt, so that's this right here, and you are multiplying that by 10. The percent of touchdown passes per attempt, so that's an important one that you want to have. You get deducted points for an interception, because if you throw the ball to the other team, that's not ideal. And then when it comes to the average yards gained per attempt, that's also something that's important, because if you're just throwing for 4 and 5 yards at a time, you may still get first downs, but maybe not. So all this factors in to the overall percentage of how well you're doing as a quarterback. That's what this is trying to do. So the example here is Dallas Cowboys quarterback Tony Romo. So some of you may remember this, some of you maybe it was too long ago, because now he's like a commentator. All right, so he completed 45 passes out of 62 attempts. So 45 passes out of 62 attempts. So if we're trying to get our initial completion percentage, then you would divide this number and multiply it by 100. So if we divide that number of 45 divided by 62, it gives us 0.725, multiply that by 100, or you could just say move the decimal, it's the same thing. You get 72.5%. So that's a really high completion percentage. Oh, excuse me, 72.58, so this would be a 6. All right, so that's a high completion percentage. Percentage of touchdowns, he threw 4 touchdowns, and he, again, still had 62 attempts. So 4 touchdowns, 62 attempts, and you divide 4 by 62, and we get 0.0645. Again, you can move the decimal 2 places, or you can multiply it by 100. You're doing the same thing either way. So we get 6.5%. All right, so this is the touchdown percentage. This is our completion percentage. All right, let's see what else we need. The interception ratio. So he did throw 2 interceptions. So that's not really what you want, but it is part of the game. So you got 2 out of 62. So you want this number to be as low as possible, 0.032. So move that over. So we're talking 3.2% for our interceptions. All right, so now we got completion percentage, we got our touchdowns, we got our interceptions, and we need to get our yards. So he threw for 632 yards. So it's 632 yards out of 62 attempts. So this is our yards. All right, so we take our 632 and divide by 62, and that gives us 10.19 or 10.2. Then we put that all together. All right, so this one is not a percentage, so because it's not out of, like, it's yardage of the 62, not a percentage, so just be careful there. So now we're going to take it and put into our formula. So we'd have our 25, which that's there all the time. And we have our 10 times, we said 72.6. And then we would have our 40 times, we said 6.5. And then we have to subtract our 50 times, because you don't want to throw interceptions, so our 50 times 3.2. And then we're adding our last step, which is our yards, and that's 50 times 10.2. All right, so this is the only one you got to be a little careful of, because all the other percentages, that one's not, so it is a little different. All right, and then we divide by 12, so that's the same base here. All right, so we put all that in the calculator, and we see that that's 113.4. Sometimes you see it as QR, sometimes you see it as QBR. Either way, that is a very, very high quarterback rating. So that would be an ideal scenario to have your quarterback with those kind of numbers. Now, did he consistently say those numbers over the full season? No, but it's still, for that 2-game span, it's still pretty impressive. All right, Steve Young has the highest career quarterback rating in NFL history. So he completed 2,059 passes over the course of his career in 3,192 attempts. Total yards was very high. Total touchdowns very high. Total interceptions was lower. Not, that's maybe the one minor flaw, but still, you'll see that his quarterback rating is very, very high. All right, so let's take our yardage. So we got 2,059. He had 3,192, so 3,192 attempts. So divide, that's 0.645 or 64.5%. So that's our completion percentage. Then we can work our way over to touchdown percentage. All right, so with our touchdown percentage, we had 174 touchdowns out of 3,192 attempts with Steve Young. So that would be 0.05, so that would be 5.5%. The interceptions, it's 85 out of 3,192. So that would be 0.02, so 2.7%. And then our last one is our yards. And again, be careful, this one is not a percentage. So this is total yardage of 25,479 over 3,192. So that's going to give us a total of 7.98. And then let's put that all in. So our 25 is going to be there. We're multiplying 10 times our 64.5, which is our completion percentage. And then we multiply our 40 times the 5.5, which is the touchdown percentage. So that's really quality. Subtract the interceptions, because that's not ideal. And then you also have your 50 times 7.98 for your yardage. And we're dividing by the 12 that it will be. All right, so we put that in the calculator for Steve Young, and we have an overall rating of 96.2. So the Q quarterback rating, or you could write QR, would be fine, 96.2. And that's over the course of a career. So that's impressive. That means he didn't really have like a bad year. All right, in the regular season of 2011, Aaron Rodgers had a great year. All right, so Aaron Rodgers came through with one of the highest for a regular season. 343 passes, 502 attempts, a ton of yards, a ton of touchdowns, very few interceptions. And we're going to find his quarterback rating for that season. All right, so we take our steps for our completion percentage, and we have 343 out of 502 attempts. So that ends up being 68.3%. That's a good completion percentage. Touchdown percentage. We have 45 touchdowns with 502 attempts. So we get a decimal, and we move that over, and we get 8.96%. Our interceptions, these were very low for the number of times he threw a pass. So we have 6 divided by 502, so that's 0.012, so 1.2%. So that's also a good thing. And then yards would be 4,643 yards and 502 attempts, which is 9.65. All right, let's put this in our quarterback rating system. We got 25 plus 10 times 68.3 plus 40 times our 8.96 minus 50 times 1.2 plus 50 times 9.25. All this is over our 12. Let's put this in our calculator, and we get 122.4 for the quarterback rating. All right, so hopefully that helps, guys. As always, if you have any questions, I'm here to help. Just shoot me a message on It's Learning.